Hi, everyone. This is Jim. This is my first attempt at a lunch and learn. So I figured with everyone stuck in their houses, this would be a way to kind of stay active mentally. If you want to bring some food while you watch this, so you can have the true lunch and learn experience, please feel free. This is my first attempt, so I am going to try and show some video clips on YouTube while we're doing this as well. Hopefully it works. If it doesn't, oh well, we'll do better next time. So today we're going to talk about how do we communicate. Obviously, communication is extremely important in relationships, jobs, and basically in any setting. It turns out there's a whole lot of communicating going on other than just talking. Sometimes there's a subtle communication, other times it's not so subtle. The movie Arrival is about a linguist recruited by the military to communicate with alien life forms after 12 mysterious spacecrafts land around the world. The aliens communicate by drawing circles, but what do they mean? Quote, language is the foundation of civilization. It is the glue that holds a people together. It is the first weapon drawn into conflict. So typically there are 5 reasons for why we communicate: to change behavior, to get action, to ensure understanding, to persuade, and then finally to get and give information. How we communicate is very interesting. Some experts think body language accounts for up to 93% of our communication, and that only 7% is actually from spoken words. This means that over half of what we are trying to communicate is from facial expressions and actions alone. And not surprisingly, many issues are bound to arise. Are we actually communicating what we intend? And then how are things interpreted when it's through written communication? Email, text, that can be really difficult to know what someone is trying to say. And often tempers can flare even though maybe they shouldn't. There are 8 types of nonverbal communication. We have facial expressions, gestures, paralinguists, so linguistics, tone, loudness, inflection, pitch. We have body language and posture, your personal space, and that differs from culture to culture, how close you are when you're talking to someone or how you communicate, your eye gaze, where you look for how long, touch, and appearance. So I'm going to try and play a clip now from Seinfeld and see if this works.
So, Jerome, I did a little snooping around for you.
Oh, which find out, Lois?
Well, I talked to Tim once, and I asked him to carry me,
So,
and he said, why carry me?
all right, but let me ask you this. Which word did he emphasize? Did he say, why would Jerry bring anything? Or, why would Jerry bring anything? Emphasize Jerry, right?
So that's a really good example of how tone is so important and inflection. As that episode demonstrates, inflection is huge in understanding even basics in communication. So take the above example. I did not say that he stole the wallet. Depending on where you have the inflection, it can mean a lot of different things. I didn't say he stole the wallet. That means that you didn't convey the message orally. I didn't say that he stole the wallet, could mean someone else stole it. Or I didn't say that he stole the wallet. They all can mean subtly different things. We are all liars. Studies show that we're lied to anywhere between 10 and 200 times a day. You could even be lying to yourself about why you're doing something, if something bothers you or not. If you really gave it your best effort, like someone comes to the elevator door and you pretend to hold the door open, but not so much. But that doesn't make lying wrong. Just because we lie doesn't mean that we're bad people or even that the lie is harmful. We may need to tell ourselves lies to feel better about ourselves and others. So if someone calls and you were supposed to call them back, oh yeah, I just got your message, or I was just about to call you, sorry. We're also secretly in favor of lies. No one will say that they prefer it, but we're secretly okay with it in certain circumstances. We ask how we look because we want affirmation, and if it's true, even better. Basically, we want to feel appreciated or valued. We're willing to overlook some really glaring contradictions if it will make us feel how we want to feel. Even babies lie. Lying is a basic skill and a tool that we all use from the time we're first born. Babies fake crying to be held or soothed. 1-year-olds learn concealment. 2-year-olds bluff. By the time you turn 5 years old, you are able to outright lie about something. Having a 2 and a 4-year-old at home, I can tell you they lie constantly about if they're hungry, if they like it or not, if they're tired. This happens constantly. Pretending is technically a form of lying, so there's often a fine line between lying and something else. Strangers lie. We tend to lie to the ones we love, but it's to protect their feelings we say, correct? It turns out strangers lie on average 3 times within the first 10 minutes of meeting one another, and sometimes we may lie without even realizing why we do it. Or it could be easier to just not say anything due to omission. So if someone calls me the wrong name, I might just say, oh, yes, hi. Maybe I don't feel like I'm going to correct them and say, actually, my name's really Jim. Even animals lie. Coco the gorilla is a very famous gorilla that was born in the San Francisco Zoo in the 70s and learned a vocabulary of over 1,000 signs that her instructor and caregiver called gorilla sign language. She befriended a kitten, which she called her pet, and at one point she blamed the kitten for ripping a sink out of the wall in her habitat. The quote is, "The cat came in handy on one particular destructive day. When no one was around, Coco managed to rip a sink out of the wall in her habitat. When the humans returned, they asked Coco who ripped out the sink, and Coco signed, the cat did it." There are some patterns with lying. So verbal dodging is one of them. People are overdetermined to convince someone or deny something, providing too much information and speaking more formally. So saying did not instead of didn't. A famous example of that is with Bill Clinton. He said, "I did not have any relations with that woman." Then there's something called body language slips. Gestures are opposite of what we are saying, and that can be called duping delight. People practice words and not gestures. So they might have over and over in their head decided what they're going to say, but they're not demonstrating with their body gestures like they would otherwise. And this is a really good example with a TED Talk by Pamela Meyer. And the name of the TED Talk is How to Spot a Liar. Definitely worth it if you have some time.
Now, we've talked a little bit about how to talk to someone who's lying and how to spot a lie. And as I promised, we're now going to look at what the truth looks like. And I'm going to show you 2 videos. 2 mothers. One is lying, one is telling the truth. These were surfaced by researcher David Matsumoto in California. And I think they're an excellent example of what the truth looks like. This mother, Diane Downs, shot her kids at close range, drove them to the hospital while they bled all over the car, claimed a scrappy-haired stranger did it. And you'll see when you see the video, she can't even pretend to be an agonizing mother. What you want to look for here is an incredible discrepancy between horrific events that she describes and a very, very cool demeanor. And if you look closely, you'll see duping delight throughout this video. At night, when I close my eyes, I can see Kristen watching her doing that twilight drowning and the blood just keep coming out of her mouth. Now, was able to feel too and but I don't think so. That house knows.
Oof, people are laughing in the crowd. That is not funny. That is rough to watch. And then she goes on to show an example of a genuine mother who is distraught over her child being killed. I don't think we need to watch that. You can get the idea. But basically, we are awful at knowing signals and cues that we are displaying to others. And this is especially difficult with dating, as shown during speed dating observations. Some people think the date went amazing, and the person that they're dating with maybe didn't get the same vibe. And it's just because we don't know what signals or messages that we are showing the other person. We only know what we think and what we say. Our body language can betray us. Who has ever been asked a question and you answer one way, but you shake your head another way? Or who has tried to be enthusiastic about receiving a Christmas gift? Oh, socks again, thank you. Only to be called out by your body language. Because we lie and are lied to so much, body language is pivotal in relaying the message we want to send, and in us interpreting the correct message from someone else. You are always communicating something with body language, especially with your facial expressions. A study was conducted during the 2004 Olympic and Paralympic Games to determine if facial expressions are learned or innate. More than 4,800 photos of sighted and blind judo athletes' facial expressions were compared during defeat, triumph, and everything in between. And they found they were almost identical, which suggests that our facial expressions are hardwired into our genes. That wasn't a behavior that they could pick up or learn over time. It was just something that they innately had. Losers pushed their lower lip up as if to control the emotion on their face. And then silver and bronze medal winners tended to produce social smiles during the medal ceremonies. Social smiles only use the mouth muscles. True smiles are known as Duchenne smiles. That causes the eyes to twinkle and narrow and the cheeks to rise. So if you look at the picture in front of you, the one on the left looks much more like a genuine smile. The real smile is in the eyes. Fake smile, you can spot, but sometimes it's not so easy to see. If you look at the eyes, you can see right away which one is real and which one is fake. There are tons of videos and books toward understanding body language, including flirting and dating, interviews, public speaking, first impressions, you name it. Bottom line, it can get extremely complicated and vague, but there are some basics. So to understand your own body language, number one, posture. Shoulder shrugs can mean insecurity, and if you're sitting more upright, it can show confidence. If you touch your neck, that can show extreme insecurity. Be aware of your hands. Are they still? Are they in your pockets? Are you using them when you're talking? What direction is your body facing? Are you open or closed? Are you receptive to conversation? Are you receptive to the person talking to you? Do you seem engaged? Do you seem disinterested? Social psychologist Amy Cuddy has learned the power of body language, and she also has a TED Talk if you're interested as well. She finds that your body language may actually shape who you are. She's discovered that our bodies change our minds change our behavior, and our behavior changes our outcomes. So that means our nonverbal behavior may actually dictate how we feel about ourselves. It kind of sounds like a stretch, but she explains. She conducted a study where participants would practice what she calls power posing for 2 minutes, and they would either adopt a high power or a low power pose. So kind of feelings of confidence, which you see on the top row, or lower power on the bottom row. Then there were 5 different aspects to this study. The participants would come in and a saliva sample was taken. Then they would do one of the poses for 2 minutes, ask some questions about how powerful they feel about some items. They're given an opportunity to gamble using money that they're given in this study. And then there was a final saliva sample taken measuring testosterone and cortisol. Results show that 86% gambled after using the high power pose and only 60% gambled after the low power. So people that had the high power were feeling much more confident or at least willing to risk things. They also found testosterone levels increased for high power poses by 20%, low power poses decreased by 10%. And then cortisol, the stress hormone, decreased by 25% for high power, but they increased by 15% for the low power. Even if we manage to communicate clearly with no lying, no verbal dodging, no body slips, account for the cultural differences you might have between you and the person you're talking to, body language cues, tone, gestures, and the facial expressions, we're also assuming the person listening is hearing everything in the way that we intended it to be heard. And as many of us have learned, if you're married, if you listen to politics at all, communication is a two-way process, and listening is definitely not the same as hearing. Because of that, there is a ton of uncertainty. Throw in some major differences between how men and women communicate, and you have yourself a fine mess. At times, it can seem like men and women are from different planets, but the good news is there are some typical things that men and women tend to do. Men will often use logic when engaging in a conversation. There is a lot of discussion on how much of this is nature and how much is nurture, but males generally have been taught since childhood not to openly express emotion, as this can show vulnerability and be interpreted as a sign of weakness. Females speak from much more of an emotional perspective. This is partially due to brain chemistry, but also social learning. There's a stereotypical idea of females within the general public that has made it easier for women to openly cry, sympathize, laugh, etc., without feeling judged or vulnerable like their male counterpart might feel in a similar situation. It's okay for women to be emotional, that's just how they are. If a guy is, something is terribly wrong. Women also will often complain that a male counterpart wants to provide advice when she talks about a problem. Women can feel unheard in this situation as they would like their partners to remark on the content of their feelings. Does that sound familiar to anyone? I know it does for me. Because of how a man's brain is wired, he is more apt to problem solve while a woman is looking to vent and share her feelings. So if my wife comes home after a hard day at work, or in this case, she's teaching from home, she'll tell me some of the issues she faced during the day, and my natural inclination might be to help her figure out what to do next time, or tell her what she should have done, when really she's just looking to talk to a person and vent about her day. So that takes me a lot of practice to get used to and try and be a better listener to actually provide what she's looking for. Typically, there are 10 major ways that men and women communicate differently. The first is nonverbal. Women are animated and they function at a high level of intensity. Men are generally more reserved and conservative in facial movement and body contact. They are unreserved in their sitting styles, they're stretching or sprawled out, while women tend to draw in, keeping their arms and legs close to their bodies. Women's actions focus on maintaining the relationship, while men depend on the task. How do they want to portray themselves? Then there's body orientation. Picture a group of men and women sitting together. Women, probably in a circle, probably facing one another, they're deep in conversation and they're making eye contact. Men, probably far away from one another at angles, their eyes are roaming around the room, they glance at each other infrequently. They're not totally fixed in or locked in on the conversation, they're kind of all over the place, but it doesn't mean that they're not listening. And these work with the same sex, but with the opposite sex, there might be mixed signals. Relaxed can be interpreted as a lack of interest. Or you have a female that's really intently listening to a guy and he interprets it as her being interested in him. Or on the flip side, you might have a guy looking around the room while he's listening to a woman talk, and she might think that he's just not engaged or doesn't care. Arguments are different even. Why do we have to eat here? Well, it's convenient. Are there any quieter restaurants nearby? Not close by. I wonder if this place has been inspected lately. Women want to ask questions and gather data. Men are simple and direct, and they may not even realize that conflict is occurring. Men dislike questions and close down emotionally. They feel like they're being challenged. Women become increasingly wary because of this. The guys are getting defensive when all they're trying to do is get information, and the guys feel like they're being, put on trial. Even apologizing. You know what? I'm sorry I made such a big deal about which restaurant to go to. It doesn't really matter. Yeah. Women use apologies to maintain connections, while men are concerned that an apology might lower them to a subordinate position. Or they might just want to move on. Giving compliments. Females learn from a young age to give compliments. Guys aren't great at that. You don't hear a lot of group of guys giving each other positive compliments or actual compliments to one another. They typically don't seek out compliments because they want to avoid criticism themselves. That is not how a woman is. A woman asking a question is hoping to be flattered, but that could result in a man offering advice, which again, not always flattering. Oh, do you like this dress? Yeah, not really. I think the one you wore yesterday was a little bit nicer. When really a woman wants to hear, of course, yes, that looks great. Problem solving. Men focus on facts and seek immediate resolutions. Action is the conversational goal. Women desire more extensive talk about problems, sharing feelings, and finding common experiences. Men don't understand why women don't want to solve problems and seem ungrateful for direct help. And then women are hurt by the perceived disregard for emotions, and they're frustrated when they feel they're being pushed into a decision too quickly. Women are in conversation mode, and they're more likely to ask questions. Their goal is to get others to agree. Men, on the other hand, interpret it as manipulation, and they'll make statements rather than suggestions. They want their way directly and quickly, and if that doesn't work, they may exit the discussion or be less passionate about the subject. Men are resentful, and then women feel slighted. This could result in an agreement that no one wanted or intended. The biggest difference is when men and women do their talking, not how much. There have been some studies that women talk 3 times as much as men, but there have been other studies where it just depends on the situation. Women spend much more time talking with family and close friends. Men talk at work and in formal and social settings, the goal being, again, to gather information. Women talk more at home and try to, quote, work on their relationships, while men see little need to speak unless there's a specific purpose. So like a problem to solve or decision to make. Otherwise, they're not much for the chit chat. Women interrupt to show concern, but they think men disrupt by shifting the subject. Men do try to control the conversation by disrupting it, and they also believe a woman's supportive interjections, go on, are interruptions. So you might feel like they're not hearing you out when really they're just trying to show you that they're listening. Then finally, email. Women revolves around relationships. They're being supportive, making suggestions, apologizing, asking questions, offering thanks. Men often portray themselves as subject experts with sarcasm or insults. They often are seeking influence, respect, and information. More direct, to the point. There are 10 nonverbal communication tips. 1, pay attention to the signals. Look for inconsistent behavior. Try and concentrate on your tone when you're speaking. Use good eye contact. Ask questions about nonverbal signals if you're unsure. If you're not sure how you should be interpreting something, ask. Oh, how did that make you feel? So you didn't like that, or you do? Use signals to make communication more effective and meaningful. And then look at signals as a whole. Don't put too much emphasis on any one signal. So maybe, again, this person is just not aware of the signals that they're displaying. And so don't try and make one issue the entire interpretation of what they're trying to say. Don't try and nitpick. Just look in a larger context. And then consider the context. What nonverbal behaviors are appropriate? If they say that they like something, but through their face, through their language, through talks about moving forward, it just doesn't seem like they're into it, that might tell you all you need to know. Be aware that signals can be misread, and it happens all the time. Even with people that we're close to that know us well, there are tons of times where someone says, are you okay? You seem off. And you could be distracted. You could be thinking about something else, and it comes off as them thinking you're angry with them. And then practice, practice, practice. This isn't going to happen overnight. Relationships are hard, so it does take good communication and a certain level of understanding and compassion as well. Keep in mind that each person has their own unique body language, and that's called their baseline behaviors. So some people are just inclined to act or behave in certain ways, and then pay special attention to changes in body language rather than the body language itself. If someone is normally really energetic and really animated, and all of a sudden they're not, then you think something is off. And on the flip side, someone who's really quiet and all of a sudden they're really talkative and chatty, then you think that something must be different too. So keep in mind how that person usually behaves and how their behavior is differing from it. And then try and watch the face. Usually it will give off a quick, involuntary, sometimes even subconscious twitch when something happens that irritates, excites, or amuses them. So try, like a poker player, try and read people to see what they're actually trying to convey. There are several tips and practices that experts recommend to make sure you're presenting the message that you are intending. Altering your body language to make others more comfortable takes time, effort, and a whole lot of patience. Studies have shown that people with lower tones are much more likely to be seen as more trustworthy. Our voice tone gives away our true feelings every single time. You can tell when someone is nervous or scared or even lying all through their tone. With many police officers, tone is often one of the first things they're taught to detect deception, which, as you would imagine, police officers deal with a lot of deception. Arm placement can be a major factor. Crossing your arms shows that you're closed off and unreceptive to communication, even on a subconscious level. You might actually be more closed off because your arms are closed. Too much arm movement distracts your audience and distracts the brain. One study found that people that move their hands more often during lectures noted a 40% reduction in information retention. It just distracted people. Further, crossing arms is seen as more negative, promoting distrust. If you want to promote being open to what someone has to say, position your body in an open stance. Then speak slowly. People who talk more quickly are seen as nervous and lacking self-confidence. You're just trying to get through it and get on with the day. Slowing your speech allows you to improve your diction, word pronunciation, and pauses allow the listener to comprehend the information. People that are generally seen as easy to talk to probably speak with a slower speed and are therefore viewed as a calming presence. Then be aware of your eyes. And this is much easier said than done, but it's doable. Your gaze allows you to develop personal connections and trust. If someone's eyes dart left and right quickly, that may seem neurotic and unpredictable. If someone doesn't look you in the eye, you are more likely to lose interest almost immediately. So try and hold your gaze, smile, and you've got someone's attention. In the end, people want to be liked, people want to be engaged, and people want attention. What does it all mean? People are generally awful at reading their own and others' body language, and that's okay. Practice makes perfect, and we are always learning and improving. Tiny tweaks can lead to big changes in your behavior and your attitude. Bad can become okay can become good, and finally good can become great. So hopefully this was informative. Hopefully this was a nice reprieve for a little bit. If you are looking for a topic that I've taught in the past or a new topic, I'm looking for things to share with you. So call, email, send a Facebook message, however you can get a hold of me. I have a long list of classes from coincidences. We did creepy crimes. We talked about cults inside the mind of serial killers. Those are kind of the darker ones. Otherwise, if you just want common misconceptions, we did a class on psychics and mediums, superstitions, the psychology of trust, wonders of the world, many, many more. So if you want like a brain fitness route or a psychology route or just something more lighthearted because of everything in the news and people being so concerned, I'm happy to do whatever you want. If you need anything, let me know. Otherwise, thanks for listening, and I will see you all next time.